Hi friends, it's Lauren Taylor. Thanks for joining me in my craft room today. I'm here sharing some of the April 2024 Spellbinders monthly club kits. I am on the quote unquote influencer team. I feel so weird saying that. For the clear stamp and die of the month. I also have the stitching die of the month, which makes a really fun embroidery hoop. And I also have the small die of the membership, which makes those cute little floss for embroidery and some fun stitch sentiments. And I'm also on the embossing folder, the 2D standard. I don't know if 2D is the right word, standard folder of the month. Um, and I also have the Better Press, but I had not received that at the time of filming this video. I have it now, so you'll see a project with that soon, but we are going to just jump in. I did a lot of die cutting already with the small die of the month, and my gold or kind of bronzy gold color I have here to make the paper wrappers for my floss. I die cut the gold with a double-sided adhesive sheet backing, so that way I could just peel it off and add it right to that black cardstock without having to add glue. And I did the same for these floss detailed pieces that go onto the larger background. So I'm just going to use a pokey tool to help me peel out all of those insides. I did use scrapbook.com's double-sided adhesive sheets, and those guys are thick. So you have to definitely run it through your die cut machine, and I would suggest using a metal shim if you have one when you use scrapbook.com's adhesive sheets, because they are very thick, which is great for assembly but not always great for die cutting. So without a shim. It's great if you have a shim. Just want to throw that out there. I love it, as you can see. So I'm adding all of the pieces that go on this floss. I had a little trouble with the middle piece. I don't feel like it lines up like perfectly, but I don't think it's supposed to, or maybe I'm just not good at putting it on. But I think it came out okay, and I like how it looks. So those are the three pieces on the large background, and I wanted to give them a little bit more dimension, so I'm grabbing Distress ink in Peacock Feathers and a blending brush and just adding a little bit of ink to the light cardstock. Those like pieces that I added, I just felt like they were too like stark next to each other. I don't know if that's the right word, but I wanted to kind of blend the lighter teal color into the darker teal, so I thought adding some ink would help with that. Now I'm going to grab my adhesive and I'm going to add glue to the black wrapper pieces, and I'll go ahead and glue those over the gaps on my floss here. So I'll just press that down, wait till it adheres, and then I'll glue the second one on. And I ended up making 3 of these total, but I'm only going to use 2 today, so I will save the third one for a future project. I think these are great to assemble like while watching some YouTube videos and just, making different colors and having them in your stash. They're really fun, and I really like how they turned out. It's really cute, especially, I mean, I'm not an embroidery person, but I did make a lot of friendship bracelets back in my day. So this is really fun for that as well. I'm bringing in some more of the teal color, so I'm going to cut down my background. So this is going to be slightly smaller than an A2. I cut it to be 4 by 5 1/4, and I'm going to go ahead and use my mister here to get my cardstock wet, and I will run that through my embossing folder, which has this really pretty kind of like fan detail. I love the dots. It just looks really fun, and it matches, I think, the stitched dies really well this month. So I ran that through my Spellbinders Platinum machine, and here you can see how fun that turned out. And my cardstock was still kind of wet, so I'm going to let it dry. So I stepped away and came back, and now that it's dry, I'm going to take one of my Cloud9 interference inks. This is in Mermaid Lagoon, and I'm just trying to get some color onto the raised parts of my background. I'm not trying to make it like too busy. just a little bit to add in some color to the edges because that's all it's really going to be seen. I have some in the middle, but you can see how fun that shine is. So even though it's like a teal ink, there is a purple kind of shimmer to it because it is an interference ink. You can see when the light hits it just right how pretty this ink is. So I'll go ahead and use my heat gun on a low setting to dry so I can move on to the next step. And that's going to be die cutting all of my dies that I want from the stitching die set. So I'm going to start with making my embroidery hoop. I'm using a craft cardstock and then the same kind of goldishy bronze color that I did for my floss. I did the like screw part of the embroidery hoop. So I guess I was wrong. I trimmed this down to 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, but now it is 4 by 5 1/4. And what I like about the embroidery hoop is that the hoop is 3 different pieces. So you actually get 2 ovals and then the kind of embossed details for the hoop. So this is a great like oval die set as well for cards. So I use the largest oval on its own to die cut a piece of white cardstock that I imagine would be the fabric in my embroidery hoop. And I just adhered my wooden hoop to the white cardstock because it's the same oval size, so it lined up just perfectly. And then I added some glue to the, I don't know what the twisty part of an embroidery hoop is called, but the hook twisty part of my hoop, and I glued that on to the back of my embroidery hoop. There's like a nice solid piece that makes that really easy to glue. So now I know that I want to mix in my small die set of the month sentiments. I love these like stitch sentiments, they look so cute. And a little bit with my clear stamp set. Now I love the happy and the high, but I'm just going to use one of the sentiments. There is only a couple that you can die cut out with a coordinated die. So I'm going to make it easy on myself and choose the thinking of you with each stitch sentiment since it has that coordinating die. And we're going to die cut more out of this teal color and white as well for stamping my sentiment. Now, I really wanted a very teal, like tone on tone card, but I'm going to bring in some more color as I continue on because I'm going to realize that I needed more on my card. It felt kind of plain. So I am going to stamp with that same interference ink pad because again, I want that teal color, and I'm using my Misty and some white cardstock to do that, and I will use the coordinating die to cut out the sentiment. I'm going to bring in those 2 teal colors that I've been using for the background and my embroidery floss for the hello, and I'll go ahead and die cut that out twice. I'm going to kind of create a shadow with the 2, so I have the lighter one on top and the darker color as the shadow. So I'll go ahead and grab my glue again, and I'm going to layer those 2 together. I'm just following the script with my thin or fine point glue, and I will add the darker color to the back, but like slightly off center to the lower right. That tends to be the way I go when I create a shadow with dies. So I'm going to now start adhering my card together. I have a top folding A2 card base. I'm just going to make sure there's a nice crease on that, and I'm going to adhere my embossed background to my card base. So I'm just going to use some super sturdy Scotch a double-sided adhesive and get that to the center of my card base. I'm going to grab some foam squares for my embroidery hoop. I'm going to use I'm getting ink everywhere. So I'm using a towel to make sure that that is nice and adhered. So anyway, I'm going to grab some double-sided foam squares to add to the back of my embroidery hoop, and I'll go ahead and adhere that to the center of my card base. I think I did 1 millimeter foam for this one. Oh, I didn't use foam squares. Sorry, I'm using foam tape, but it is 1 millimeter thickness, so it's not too thick since I'm going to layer on more on top of this. I didn't want to use a thicker foam and create, a super thick card. So now I'll get that to adhere to the center of my card base. I like to use the grid on my glass mat to help me get it as centered as I can, and you can see it takes up most of the card. I'm going to play around with the layout of my floss and my sentiment until I'm pretty happy with it. And I'm going to grab my foam adhesive and start gluing everything together. So this is, I believe, my 2 millimeter thick one because it's going to be glued on top of the embroidery hoop, and that part of my floss is going to touch the embossed background. And since there's a lot going on, I knew I needed a slightly thicker foam square for that one. So I'm trying to angle it to cover some of the areas where I went a little too heavy on the ink. Um, for this one, I'm doing the 1 millimeter thick because I don't want it to be too thick. It is 2 millimeter where it touches the embossed background, but anywhere where it's overlapping the embroidery hoop, I did 1 millimeter. Same for my sentiments. I'm just going to add that 1 millimeter thick foam to my sentiment where it overlaps with the white background, and then liquid adhesive where it overlapped the floss. And then I grabbed 1 millimeter foam strips, but this time I did the 1/8 strips from scrapbook.com and added different strips behind my hello sentiment, and that was going to finish off my card. But the more I looked at it, the more I was like, it's missing something. And while I did love the tone on tone, I really wanted a pop of another color. So I decided to do some more die cutting with the flowers from the Stitch die set. And I decided to go with purple flowers since that was the interference ink color along with the teal. It has a purple shimmer. So I went ahead and die cut the 2 flowers out of purple cardstock, and I poked out all the holes, but I'm not going to do any stitching on these. I just think they look so pretty on their own. You don't have to do stitching. I die cut the center of the flowers in that same bronzy gold color, so I'm going to glue those to the center of my flowers. And then I decided to go with a fun kind of limey green cardstock for the leaves. I just thought that they would go great with the teal and purple. So I'm going to get those kind of figured out where I want them on my card since I already glued everything else down. It took me a little to kind of figure out how I wanted it, but I'm going to go ahead and glue this large flower down first. And I'm going to do that above the hello. And then I will actually pop up my smaller flower on top of that one. So I'll just grab some 1 millimeter thick, I believe it's one. Let me see what I grab here. Yeah, 1 millimeter thick foam squares. Again, I don't want to create it to be like crazy thick. So since I already have a 1 millimeter a thinner foam on my hoop, just using the same thickness as the rest of my card for that second flower. I'm going to add liquid adhesive for all of my leaves because I'm just going to tuck them in and have them stick to the hoop or anything around the design of the card, just get them stuck in place. And then I will add one more leaf like it's coming out from behind the flower and the floss. I felt like it was missing something on the bottom, so I die cut one more leaf and one more flower, and we're going to go ahead and add those to the bottom of the card just to give it a little more balance since it was very top heavy. So after I'm done gluing those on, that's going to finish off my card. And I'm really happy I added the pops of purple and green with the flowers. I think it really elevated the card. The tone on tone was really pretty, but I'm happy with the choices I made with this card, and I hope you liked it too. I hope you enjoyed seeing how you can combine a lot of these April 2024 Spellbinder Club kits this month. Let me know which one I used today that's your favorite, the stamps, the die, the stitching die, or the embossing folder. I'd love to know what you think is the best this month. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you'll click like, and if you're new here, I hope you'll subscribe and come back. As always, you can find everything I use down below in the description box. Thank you and have a wonderful day. Bye!